Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So for this tutorial, this cake might look simple, but it's not. This is something I can't believe I haven't shown you before. This lace is 100% buttercream. Now most of us anyways, have done lace with silicone mats, and the lace materials, different ones, there's different products. But why not do it with buttercream? And I'm going to show you how I did that. But first, we're going to go ahead and get our cakes filled and ready to be decorated. This was a 6-inch, 8-inch, and 10-inch wedding cake. And I'm just using my crusting American buttercream on this one. This was a marble cake. And I did a thickened dam around the outside of each layer of cake. And I'm doing it on this one as well as every other cake that I do. I do a thickened buttercream dam because that helps to hold in your filling. Whatever kind of filling that may be. Some people just do it for like a fruit filling, like a thinner filling, but I do it for all of them because your buttercream, if it's not thickened, will still bulge, especially when you're dealing with a taller wedding cake or a taller cake of any kind because of gravity. Gravity is going to pull it down. It just does. And if your buttercream is not thickened, which means you just add extra powdered sugar to it to get it thicker, then you will have a problem. If you, it's happened to me, if you don't thicken it. So definitely, I highly suggest that. Then I'm using the same buttercream, not thickened, to do my crumb coat and my final coat of buttercream. Now, crumb coat just locks in those crumbs so that when you do your final coat, you're not having crumbs coming through your buttercream. Plus, especially with a wedding cake, you don't want to see the cake through the buttercream. For me, I don't want to see the cake through the buttercream of any cake. But if you do a crumb coat and then you do another layer on top of that, you're going to have thick enough buttercream and the crumbs will not be poking through. Now, since there's not a whole lot of extra details on this cake, I spent a little extra time making sure that my sides were level, my top was flat, and the corners are crisp. Now, if you have a problem or if you struggle with that, I would highly suggest getting acrylic discs. I do believe I have a video on how to do that from a long time ago way back at the beginning when I first started doing videos. And it shows you how to use acrylic discs. I'm going to have to make sure that I did not delete that video. If I did, I apologize, but you can find lots of videos on how to do that. But since I do this all the time and I've got some practice under my belt, I've kind of figured out how to do it without the acrylic discs. To the best of my ability anyways. Now each tier I am setting in the refrigerator to firm up when I am done with them because we want our buttercream to be firm. And actually, I would set it in the freezer. That's honestly the correct thing to say, is put it in your freezer so that it's nice and chilled and firmed up before you even attempt to do this. Now, this buttercream that I used here is a little different than the buttercream that I use to coat my cakes. I will add in the description box the difference. It's basically the same thing. It's just the ingredients are changed out just a little bit. And that's what makes it work really well for this because it firms up really nicely. Now, this first time with this mat, I did not add anything to the mat. I just put the buttercream in there. Make sure that you go from different angles. And when you're spreading that buttercream in there, because you don't want there to be holes in little pockets. So just go from different angles to make sure you get everything completely filled. And I left a little bit of a film on top behind the lace just for a little added security. And then I'm just attaching it to the chilled cake. And then smoothing it out with my scraper just to make sure that it's actually attached really well. You don't need to overwork this. You just need to make sure that it's making contact throughout the entire piece. And then stick it in your freezer for, how long would I say, until you can pull your mat away. Maybe half an hour, 45 minutes. And as you peel it away, little bits might come off a little bit, but you know what? That's okay because the pattern is busy enough with any kind of a stencil. It's going to be really, especially white on white like this cake was. You're not going to notice little pieces missing. Once you get the entire thing done, you're not going to notice. And see how I did there too? When it pulled away a little bit, I just kind of pushed the mat back on it and do a little bit of a little extra rubbing on the back of it in that one spot. Now, see, I was starting to say earlier, the first one I did not put anything in it. And since I did have a little bit of sticking, this time, and for the rest of it, I go ahead and I went and I dusted some cornstarch into the mold. Now, you could probably use powdered sugar, but I like to use cornstarch. What I've always used, or corn flour, same thing. And that way, once it has firmed up in the freezer, I was hoping that it would release easier. And I feel like it actually did. And the pattern is really easy to just go ahead and line right up with the one that you did first. And put it back in your freezer before you do your second piece or your next pieces of lace, because you want that first layer to make sure that it has not warmed up at all when you were removing the mat, because you might end up messing up your pattern. Now, I'm not going to lie, this takes a little while because you have to go in and out of the freezer, in and out of the freezer, in and out of the freezer. But I think the look is well worth it. I was very happy with the way this one turned out. One thing I did learn too is that not every silicone mat is going to work really well, because I have another one that I tried to use and it had more inset pattern. Like this one is fairly flush. The pattern is detailed, but it's not really deep. And it released better than the other one did. So just FYI, give it a try first before you commit to somebody in a contract that you're going to use this mat or this silicone or this lace pattern, because if it doesn't work, you're going to wish you hadn't. So go ahead and figure out which ones. Just use a cake, like you could even use a cake dummy and cover it with buttercream and freeze it and do the same thing and just kind of go through your mats and see which ones do work if this is something that really interests you. Now I just cut all of my dowels to the same height. I added some buttercream and I just kind of plunked it on there. Every tier has been chilled before I do this. So you can move it around without worrying about messing up with your buttercream too much. And even if you do pull some buttercream off the very bottom when you stack it on the one before, one underneath, just use your buttercream like I did there to, I like to call it caulking, like you're caulking around it so you can fill it in. There's my friend Lacey. She did not realize that I was filming. So she's a sweet, sweet person. And then I did the same thing with the top tier. And and my hands are clean, guys, I promise. I wash my hands before I do this. If I use my hands, my fingers to do that, there's a reason, because I couldn't fit the scraper in there. So I had to use my finger, just make sure that your hands are washed. And then I did just a little thin or smaller bead border. And I did not even use a tip in the bag. I just cut a small hole in it. These are the tipless piping bags. I do like to use those for this reason. And here I had made a swag of silk flowers because honestly, since this was at a venue, they're going to have fresh flowers. Well, I didn't have those fresh flowers and I wanted to add decoration to this cake to show you. So I just used some silk flowers. I'm going to have to show you how I do that at some point. I just put them on a skewer with some floral tape. I taped the stems together and then I taped that to a skewer and I just inserted it so that when I took it out, I just filled the hole so they would never know. So there it is, all done, guys. I hope you like it. I know it's a more simple white on white, but it's still gorgeous. If you look close, you can see all those details. So please like, subscribe, and share, and we will catch you on the next one.